Part 59. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 584. Garen focused on the vampire's stance. The entire vampire race seems to be roughly divided into two factions, or two tendencies. The Ming Party and the Secret Party. Ming Dang, because the vampires in this world were originally mutated from humans, most vampires believe that they are evolved humans, evolvers of the new era, and belong to advanced humans. In the world, we should be the elite among the elite and the leader. These vampires consider themselves members of the human race. They maintain order and even rule and influence large areas of the world. Secret Party, this part of the vampire race is extremely bloody and thinks that they are a higher species. Humans are just their food and livestock, just like cattle and sheep raised in captivity. They can eat whenever they want. They are a new species higher than humans. Species that does not consider itself a member of the human race. This part of the vampires are terrorists, who often disrupt social order and conflict with vampires who have party-minded ideas. However, the two ideas are just trends, not real parties. Some vampires may change their minds after a period of time and turn from bright parties to secret parties. Some secret parties tend to lean toward vampires, perhaps because they like human beings' life, and completely integrated into it. From a secret party to an open party, this is uncertain. As long as it is not an obviously sharp incident, there will be no dispute between the two parties. Overall, it seems that apart from vampires and witches, there are no other extraordinary groups in this world. It seems that the entire world is dominated by vampires and witches who jointly rule the mysterious world. This made Garen feel a little weird, and he also understood why the status of women in the town was so much higher than that of men. Obviously it is because of the mysterious power that witches possess. Except for the witch vampires, although the rest of the human group has become more and more technologically advanced, they are still vulnerable to the vampires. This is like a natural enemy's restraint. The lowest vampire can easily control humans, and even if it is allowed to commit suicide, it will not encounter any resistance. The ability to charm humans is coupled with the terrifying speed, power, and even resilience that come and go without a trace. Even the best fighters are difficult to defeat vampires. Except for a few areas, the number of blood vampires is limited after all. They have their own limit on the number of descendants they can develop. Even vampires cannot develop at will. Galen came to a rough conclusion after carefully studying the blood composition of the vampire body. Their core is the blood core. The name of this thing is the core, but unless the blood is exhausted, you can't find it at all. This is the essence of the blood clan. Only after the blood is completely drained will it appear condensed and located in the heart. The blood core requires the upper-level developer to separate a trace of his own blood core as the basic foundation and inject it into the body of the descendant who has been drained of blood, so that he can be revived into the next level vampire. This process of blood core differentiation will consume the vampire's own blood core. The blood core is the source of everything for them, the source of life. As long as the blood core is not destroyed, except for the injuries caused by the head being blown, they can regenerate their limbs and completely recover from their injuries. After roughly figuring out the situation of the vampires, Garen began to collect things like black wooden crosses. With the help of two mercenaries, Bald Katon and his wife Hera, I have collected 2 more wooden crosses in the past 2 years. Including the one that Garen originally got, there are 3 in total. He absorbed 10 potential points from 3 crosses, which is a rare and big gain in this world. These 10 potential points are still in the attribute column, and Galleon is also thinking about how to distribute them. Anyway, there is no place where the secret weapon is needed for the time being. Raphael is responsible for security. In the eyes of outsiders, he is just an ordinary high school student and will never encounter situations beyond his current ability. Initially, he wanted to improve his strength because he was worried about being invaded by vampires, but after knowing the strength of Raphael, Garen was no longer worried. Not to mention the implicit understanding between the witches and the vampires in the small town. Half sitting on the window sill, Garen took another look at his attribute bar. Galen Thomas. Power 2.4. Agile 2.5. Physical fitness 2.4. Intelligence 2.1. Potential 1058%. Soul limit 30. Soul seed, Northern Halberdier's cold flame true water evil technique. A lot of the previous skills below are gone, only 2. Claws of Hesaz, the second layer of sinister hands. 4 floors in total. Violin mastery, second, mastery level. 3 levels in total. As for other learning things, Galen thought that maybe his subconscious mind didn't think it was a difficult skill to learn, so he didn't include it directly. The eyes moved to the 2 skills, and the number of potential points required was revealed respectively. The Claw of Hesaz required 5 points to advance to 1 level, and Violin Master only needed 1 point. There was a huge gap between them. After thinking about it, Garen finally turned his attention to Hesaz Mai Wu. The origin of this secret weapon is unknown. It seems to be extremely difficult to improve from the 2nd to the 3rd level. He originally thought that he would be able to break through in a few years. Unfortunately, he has not seen any breakthrough until now, which makes him suspicious. Are you missing some necessary external stimulation? But fortunately, the power of the 2nd level Sinister Hand is actually comparable to the lethality of the giant elephant at the peak of the secret martial arts world, and the coverage range of the spirit has also reached an astonishing more than 10 meters. Finally, we relied on external forces to force a breakthrough. Garen sighed and watched as the potential point instantly dropped by 5 points. Then the claws of Hesaz suddenly blurred for a moment, and then quickly became clear. There was a hint of black energy in the claw symbol represented by the entire secret weapon. Hand of Killing, Level 3, Bloody. 4 levels in total, can be derived and evolved to higher levels. This terrifying killing technique originated from Heshez, the king of killing, and the soul information contained in it will only be fully revealed when it reaches the 3rd level. Hesaz, one of the 42 demon kings of Gaian Duo, has an indescribable talent for killing. His eyes can annihilate souls as long as they are touched. It is said that his hands can make everything return to death, whether it is living or non-living things. Tisk, tisk. You know this thing is not an ordinary thing. Garen's mood suddenly improved. Until now, this was the first time he heard that Guyan Duo had 42 demon kings. The Claw of Hesaz was originally something found in a ruins. From this point of view, the secret weapons collected in the world of secret weapons, especially the parts that Garen himself cannot see through, are obviously very likely to originate from powerful ancient beings at different levels. After the secret weapon was improved, within 2 minutes, Garen felt a large stream of cool air coming out of his brain and quickly spreading throughout his body. In an instant, his hands felt hot for a while, and then some kind of angry and violent roar was vaguely heard in his ears. In a daze, Garen seemed to see a humanoid black shadow emerging in front of him. I Weaslcam. Weaslcam. The eyes of the humanoid black shadow were 2 endless rays of white light. It roared and became angry, and then under Garen's gaze, it burst into pieces and turned into countless black smoke that penetrated his nostrils, mouth, and ears. Gaian do you? Garen sat on the windowsill with a dazed look in his eyes. To outsiders, he just sat quietly on the windowsill from beginning to end without any movement. But once someone looks closely, they will find that the pupils of his eyes, the white part of the eyeballs, are constantly filled with countless black smoke. The black smoke flowed quickly toward the center of Garen's pupils, and soon disappeared. He didn't understand the words of the humanoid shadow. It seemed that it was indeed an ancient pronunciation of multiple languages, but when the pronunciation of those words was combined, he had no idea what it meant. If nothing else goes wrong, that humanoid shadow is probably the demon king Hesaz of Gaian Duo. Why is he so angry? It seems that the real secret of the mysterious disappearance of the ancient Yinduo civilization is hidden here. The ancient Yinduo civilization is closely related to the extremely powerful warlocks. They advocate death and yearn for death. As one of the 42 demon kings, Hesaz should be at the top of it. So what kind of thing would make this powerful person terrifying? Is the extremely powerful being so angry? Garen came back to his senses, felt something had changed in the attribute bar, and quickly looked at the attribute bar. This sight immediately startled him. The humanoid shadow from before was now turning into a shadow with two white eyes. On the attribute bar, it quickly swooped towards the name Garen Thomas. Involuntarily, as the black shadow approached, Garen felt a chill running through his body, as if some huge crisis was about to invade his own safety. Is this similar to the legendary body stealing? His eyes turned cold instantly. The soul seeds deep in the soul exploded, turning into a bright blue human form and swooping towards the black shadow. The blue figure holds an ice crystal halberd in his hand, and his face is almost exactly the same as Garen's in his previous life. His eyes were cold, and he waved his ice crystal halberd to fight with the black shadow. The two small figures collided wildly on the attribute bar. It seemed like a small battle, but Garen knew that this was a battle related to his own life. The black shadow humanoid was so powerful that it suppressed the blue galleons at first, but as time went on, the little galleons had a steady stream of support from soul seeds, and finally saved the defeat and gradually suppressed the black shadows. Finally, with an unwilling roar, the humanoid black shadow completely collapsed and turned into countless black smoke, which was absorbed by the killing hand column in the skill column. Everything is calm. Garen suddenly woke up from his trance. Just now, he had put his mind into the soul seeds and fought desperately with the humanoid black shadow. Unexpectedly, he was beaten back steadily by the powerful Northern Halberd soldier's cold flame true water evil art. The black shadow obviously lacks strength, but it only relies on some special weird skills to suppress the evil power with less than 1/10 of its own strength. It is conceivable that if the opponent is in a state of full strength, it will really it's dangerous. The soul seed is the condensed core of all the power of my totem world. Once it explodes, on the soul level, it will be the same as the peak state of my totem world. Surprisingly, this can't suppress that black shadow. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 585. The Demon King Gyanduo is really powerful. He took a deep breath and jumped off the windowsill. This sudden danger made Garen understand one of the uses of soul seeds. To defend the soul, all the power gathered in the previous world is integrated into the soul seed. This is equivalent to having a version of yourself in the heyday of the previous world on the soul level to help you resist. Somehow, Garen felt that the soul seed seemed to have more uses, and the defense ability might just be a basic function. After checking his whole body, there was nothing wrong. Garen then safely picked up the piano case and left the classroom towards the carport where he parked his car. Starting the motorcycle, he kept thinking about the human-shaped black figure along the way. He vaguely felt that the humanoid shadow was probably not the complete body of Hesaz, but more likely a clone of him. The two original claws of Heshez, one for him and one for Andrila, were both identical and placed in sealed metal boxes. As for the claw of Heshez, although it is a secret weapon that Garen himself cannot understand, it seems that the secret book of this secret weapon has appeared in other ruins. Maybe this Hesaz originally planned to cast a net, holding on to a glimmer of hope that as long as someone could break through the third level, they would have a chance to be reborn. It's a pity. Garen shook his head. With my level of realm, coupled with the transformation of soul seeds, I have been practicing since childhood and have not been able to break through to the third level for so long, let alone other people. It is estimated that most people can't even break through. You can't even break through the first level. It's a miracle that you can reach the second level after decades of practice. Putting aside these things, I feel that the killing hand no longer has any strange sense of crisis. It is obvious that the Hessa's child body should have been destroyed by the soul seed. Garen felt relieved. I still have to pack my things when I go back soon. In the evening, my father Emma drives me to the city to catch the train, and I have to catch the plane when I get to the provincial capital. Brother, remember to come back to see me often. My sister Vivian has had the talent of pretending to be cute since she was a child. Even though she is more than 10 years old, she still has a bulging face and reaches out for Garen to hug her. Garen hugged her up. Of course we won't forget our cute little Ween-Wen. At the door of the living room, Mother Therese was wearing a white shirt and women's trousers, leaning against the door with her hands folded. Okay, it's not like I won't come back after I go out. We can still see each other during the holidays. Father Emma handed over Galleon's handbag. The large brown handbag contains simple clothes and shoes as a gift. It's getting late. Let's go out early. You can come back anytime when you have time, Emma said inarticulately with a cigarette in her mouth. Brother, remember to bring me a signed poster. Jason stood at the door of his room with an uncontrollable smile on his face. He was obviously very happy to have one less brother oppressing him. I got it, Garen waved to him. It's just a little troublesome in my freshman year. Once I implement it in my sophomore year, I might have time to come back and take a look. Carrying the things and going out, there were two sisters, Alicia, standing in the yard outside. The two sisters were very familiar with the Garen family because of their relationship with Jason and Vivian. In the past few years, they had bought a second-hand house nearby. They lived together and became very good neighbors. As soon as she saw Galen coming out, Alicia came over excitedly and chatted non-stop with little Vivian, peeking at Galen from time to time. Obviously, a top student from a top university still has a lot of weight in the minds of children, no less than a celebrity idol on TV. Ishiro chatted politely with his mother Therese, and said a few words to Garen from time to time, which gave him some experience of going out alone. Garen has become familiar with Ishiro in the past few years, mainly because of Jason. From time to time, he has to take the initiative to ask Ishiro out for him. Unfortunately, Jason has no chance. Instead, the two families are getting closer and closer because of this relationship. The closer Ishiro vaguely became a member of the Garen family like the eldest sister. Both parents pitted the two sisters because their parents died young and it was not easy to live alone outside. They accepted them enthusiastically and even found a job for Ishiro as a bookkeeper in the town's bookstore. The group of people sent Garen to his mother's white SUV and put the things on it. Garen sat in the passenger seat and waved to the people outside. Jason, remember the mission I gave you? Garen winked at Jason. No problem, leave it to me, Jason patted his chest. Garen finally told Raphael the time of his departure. Although he didn't see her coming to see him off, the girl must be watching here quietly in a corner. Garen asked Jason to hand over the children's piano that he practiced as a child to Raphael as a gift. Mother drove the car, waving to the people behind her, and slowly increased her speed. Soon, nothing could be seen behind her, only bright road lights. The car whined quickly and left the town, following the winding black road and moving quickly between the forest and sea. The street lights soon gradually dimmed and went out. Only the car lights outside the window shone on the road, with faint reflections. Both sides and front became dark. Garen looked forward, and saw that the road was receding continuously, with only a white line in the middle clearly visible. Looking behind, the town was completely invisible. From time to time, a passing car passed by on the side, and the car's lights flashed and it was hard to see what model it was. Occasionally there are gas stations and brightly lit motels on the roadside. Apart from the sound of the engine, there was no other noise in my ears. Mother Therese kept an eye on her son's condition while driving the car. What? You can't bear to leave? That's right. You have grown up here since you were a child and have never really gone out once. Now that you have really come out, Don't you feel a little nervous and excited? It's not bad. Although I've already checked it online in advance, but when it actually came out, I felt a little excited. Garen nodded and replied. In the future, I will remember this route. When I come back, I will transfer the train from Bika City to Fenan. Then I can charter a car or call me to pick you up. Yeah. I know. Remember to build good relationships with people in school. All the students there are pretty good. You will also have a good network of connections when you get out, which will also be helpful for your future development. Clear. Also, if you get into trouble at school and you really can't get through it, you can call this number. Mother Teresa hesitated, and finally reported a series of phone numbers. Call Uncle Ank and be polite. He should be a professor in your school now. Garen glanced at the expression on Trisa's face. It was obvious that she had a special relationship with this Uncle Ank, and he might have been her suitor back then. After that, the two of them stopped talking. Tris concentrated on driving. She only occasionally remembered something and told Garen immediately. Garen answered casually, but looked sideways at the speeding road and forest outside the window. It wasn't until there was nothing left to say after more than 10 minutes that Tris pressed the radio button. I know you will miss me. Does heaven also have a window to look down? A melodious and hoarse male voice sounded in the car. The gentle melody made Tris couldn't help but hum along softly. I don't know how long it took, but Garen waited for boredom, so he simply closed his eyes and rested, and fell asleep without even realizing it. I don't know how long it took, but the car slowed down and Garen woke up from his sleep. There was already a lively sound of people and cars outside. Dense bright lights continued to flash behind the car. Shops and street stalls were one after another, and cars passed by in an endless stream. We're almost there. Mother Teresa's voice came from the side. What time is it now? 10:30 at night, dear. Did I sleep for more than 2 hours? Roughly the same. Garen looked out the window at the unfamiliar streets and cities. Yellow and white lights and car lights kept passing by, and there was dense traffic in front of him. A white convertible sports car passed by on the right, and the dark-skinned man wearing earrings in the car whistled loudly towards Therese. Hey! Beauty! Garen gave the other person a middle finger, which immediately caused the man to burst into laughter. Zi! Therese turned the steering wheel suddenly, and the off-road vehicle suddenly hit the man's sports car. The two cars just missed each other and collided with each other. The man was startled, and hurriedly accelerated to pass him. He cursed loudly and never dared to provoke this person again. When you go out, don't let people think you are easy to bully, and don't hide yourself deliberately and wait until others bully you to show off your strength. You should put on a posture and let others know that even if you can't beat him, you can definitely tear him apart. The next piece of meat, so most people will not take the initiative to mess with you. Understand? Tris smiled and took the opportunity to teach Garen a lesson. Of course I understand. You don't have to be able to outdo others, but you need to let those who target you know that there is a price to pay for messing with you. As long as the price is big enough, you can have the ability to protect yourself. Garen nodded. Of course, this is usually a last resort when you encounter special circumstances. If the situation really develops seriously, then find a lawyer. I have found a private lawyer consultant for you. All your troubles in school will be solved. You can consult her in advance. Is she a beauty? Of course. Tris smiled in a good mood. My senior brother's graduate student is your senior sister. Garen shrugged. She will take the initiative to contact you when she arrives. Her name is Kelly, don't forget. I know, Mom, you've made really thoughtful arrangements. The car slowly stopped in the square at the entrance of the train station. In a row of parking spaces on the side, the two got out of the car. Tris whispered a few words to the administrator who came over, and then pulled Galen towards the station hall. There were some crowded crowds, security checks, ticket checking, and delivery to the platform. Therese didn't speak the whole time, but just checked the salute, wallet, ID card, notice, and possible cold medicine, diarrhea medicine, etc. on Galen over and over again. Okay, Mom, let's go back. When Galen entered the train door, he turned back and shouted to Therese. Let's go back. Therese waved at him with a warm smile on her face. It's best to bring a grandson back before graduation, she suddenly said loudly and fiercely. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 586. Galen paused for a moment, and the passengers around him laughed loudly. One of the men with a big belly was the most exaggerated, patting his belly while drinking a can of beer. Your mother is so energetic, he patted Garen on the shoulder. Staring at him speechlessly, Galen carried his luggage bag and walked towards his compartment. The train was very empty, there was no crowding, and it was a little chilly with the air conditioner on. The air conditioning blew past my ankles, and from time to time I could smell a faint smell of foot odor. Garen quickly found his seat according to the ticket. Unfortunately, on the seat where the two of them were sitting, a bald middle-aged man took off his shoes and lay on his back, sleeping soundly. Putting the salute on the luggage rack opposite, Garen glanced at the man. He had a sinewy face and bulging arms. He looked quite strong. He patted the other party's pants, but there was no reaction. Sit here with me. Opposite the seat is a father and daughter. It seems that the father is sending his daughter to go to college. The daughter is about 18 or 19 years old and timid. The father is wearing a blue work clothes. I don't know what it is. His job type, his hair is a bit gray, and he looks kind-hearted. He smiled at Garen and squeezed towards his daughter inside. Sit here with me and wait until he wakes up. No need. Garen smiled friendlily. He stretched out his hand with more strength and patted the middle-aged man's calf. What? The man squinted his eyes and finally woke up, looking at Garen twice. You have taken my seat, can you get up for a moment? Garen asked kindly. Can't you sit across from me? The bald man asked a little irritably. There are already people on the other side. Garen shook his head. Can you please wake up? Let me sleep a little longer, and I'll let you down later, the bald man said, dissatisfied. Little guy, you are still young, you have to learn to be considerate of us adults. Garen was speechless. This time he noticed that two of his companions were sitting behind the bald man's seat. They were wearing black tight-fitting vests with bulging muscles and green and black snake tattoos on their arms. Two men, one with a shaved head and the other with a shaved head, were looking at themselves up and down. Come on, just sit here with me for a while. Seeing that something was wrong in the atmosphere, the father with his daughter quickly grabbed Garen and sat down in his seat. Let's be considerate to each other when we are away from home. He smiled kindly at the sleeping bald man, and the two strong men turned back and continued chatting. Thank you, brother, but I still like to sit in my own seat. Garen suddenly laughed and broke away from the other person's hand. He reached out and grabbed the bald man's collar. Dare to take action. Two strong men stood up immediately. One of them raised his eyebrows and grabbed Garen's shoulder with his big hand. Bang bang. After two consecutive kicks, the two strong men didn't even figure out what was going on. They felt a sharp pain in their stomachs as soon as they got out of their seats, and they fell down wailing. Why don't you listen to me? You have to know it hurts before you regret it. Garen picked up Bald's collar and punched him in the stomach. The speed was so fast that the other party didn't even have time to react, and he was thrown into two beside the strong man. The three of them huddled on the ground and groaned in pain, like shrimps they had just picked up, and their waists could not straighten. For such a small role, he was too lazy to spend more energy. Seeing the father and daughter swallowing their saliva and being frightened, he smiled brightly at them. The beautiful smile immediately diluted the fierceness just now. Soon 2 car policemen came over and asked briefly. Galen went up and stuffed a few bills into the leader without leaving any trace, and the 3 strong men who were kneeling on the ground and wailing were quickly dragged away. The entire carriage was quite quiet at first, but when they saw Galen, a weak and beautiful young man, he defeated 3 strong men in a few strokes. Most people's attention was immediately attracted and they quietly looked at Galen. The quiet car is even quieter. The 2 father and daughter sitting opposite were even more curious. Child, those 3 people may have accomplices. You must be careful when you get out of the car, the gray-haired man warned worriedly. It's okay, I've dealt with this kind of thing a lot, Garen grinned, showing his white teeth. In the previous 2 lives, not 10,000 but 8,000 living creatures died under his hands, especially in the totem world. When he was using his potential points, his hands were even more bloody. As for those 3 minor characters, naturally I don't care about them at all. For some reason, when the 2 father and daughter saw his white teeth, they shuddered unconsciously and stopped mentioning those 3 people. There was no conversation between the 2 sides for a while, and Garen sat down by the window. This was his favorite seat. Originally it wasn't his, it was the bald one's, but now that guy couldn't sit, so it was naturally given to him. As for whether those 3 strong men would come back to cause trouble for him, that was naturally impossible. Garen casually moved the 3 people's injuries. They would still be in pain for at least 2 hours, and the pain would not disappear until their whole bodies became weak. This lesson was enough for them to quit. The train clattered forward. Galen put one hand on the windowsill, took out his CD player with the other hand, put in a song and played it on a loop. A gentle female voice sounded softly in my ears, and the singing was so close, as if I was singing quietly beside me. Garen tapped his fingers lightly on the table without making any sound, just tapping lightly with his fingers. The girl opposite looked at him curiously, her eyes a little embarrassed and evasive, but it was obvious that she was curious. The girl didn't look very good, with short black hair. She was wearing a dark blue shirt and black trousers. She didn't look well dressed. She also wore a pair of glasses. Garen smiled at her, but the other person's face turned red immediately, and she lowered her head and did not dare to look at him again. The time on the train passed quickly. When he had nothing to do, Garen took out a novel from his luggage bag and read it slowly. He originally planned to buy a sleeper berth ticket, but unfortunately the sleeper berth tickets were sold out long ago. It was during the period when students from all over the country were going to college, so sleeper berth tickets were extremely difficult to buy. He was not a pampered young man, so Garen didn't bother to extend the time and just bought a regular seat. It takes about 8 hours to get from Fenan to Baika City, and it will be early morning. Galen calculated the time, and he could go directly to the airport to catch the flight when he arrived at the station, so he didn't sleep. Sitting in the carriage, he watched the flow of people carefully as people got on and off from time to time. What surprised him was that after looking at hundreds of people one after another, none of them had supernatural powers such as vampires. They were all ordinary people. This made him truly understand how rare this vampire is in the human world. As for witches, he couldn't identify the identity of witches at all. When they didn't use their power, they were exactly like ordinary people, going about their daily lives, working and studying. There was no existence worth paying attention to, so Garen concentrated on reading his novel. It was rare to have such leisure time. Whether it was the secret martial world or the totem world, he faced challenges all the time, kept moving forward, and never relaxed for a moment. But here, you can't practice Maiwu excessively. Instead, you can only do whatever you want to do during the rest of the time. There is suddenly more free time. When he was bored, he was also thinking about the conflict between the Alicia sisters and the original color group. Ever since the bald mercenary came, he didn't know what method he used. Anyway, he concealed the information about the two sisters. There were no new mercenary killers for several years. But as Aishiro's sister Arisha grew up, Garen began to feel a weird aura from her that was much stronger than his sister's, an aura that seemed like the history of the planet. He had a hunch that maybe Alicia was the real key figure. But these are none of his business for the time being. What he wants to do now is to go to college and then collect more things like black wooden crosses outside. The bald couple have broken away from their original colors and organized a mercenary group by themselves. All the members in it are elite talents who have practiced the secret technique of shadowing with Garen's consent. They were originally elites, but after receiving the projection, they became even more powerful, enough to compare with those high-level special talents. Recently, he has gradually emerged in the circle of special talents, and has even received a resounding nickname, Nighthawk. All the elite snipers, coupled with the increase in secret skills, suddenly became the most elite top killers. It achieved extremely impressive results on the African battlefield last year, becoming the third-ranked head-hunting mercenary group overall. It can be regarded as a preliminary squeeze into the circle of top-level mercenaries. Garen gradually improved the effect of projection, and the side effects were greatly reduced. However, the improved version was only held in his own hands and was not released directly. Although this thing is just an ordinary thing for him personally. But for others, it is the top killing technology. As a creator, you must be as clear as possible about the value of the resources you have in the eyes of others, and get the maximum value with the minimum cost. This has always been the basic principle followed by Galen. After all, people are not always in a state of abundance. If you develop this good habit, you will always encounter opportunities to work in the future. After sorting out all his thoughts along the way, Garen was also observing the flow of people. After all, he still didn't see a vampire or vampire hidden among humans. Obviously the proportion here is unusually small. Time passed quickly. 8 hours flew by. The two fathers and daughters opposite were still watching movies with their MP4 players. The Bika City platform finally arrived. Garen took off his earplugs, put away the CD player with only a little power left, and smiled kindly at the two people opposite him. Then he took off his large suitcase from the luggage rack on the opposite side and arrived at Bika City smoothly. Early in the morning. When I stepped off the train, I was greeted by a blast of cool air outside. The station was empty, except for the passengers who had just gotten off the bus and carried their luggage toward the underground passage. The whine of another train could be faintly heard in the distance. Garen took a breath and saw a clear white mist spraying out of his mouth. He walked calmly towards the underground passage with his large suitcase in hand. There is snow-white cement on the ground, illuminated billboards on the walls, and a gentle female voice announcing the number of train stops. Everything is extremely simple, as if after leaving grandeur, the outside world is completely ordinary without any abnormalities. There are no vampires, no witches, no extraordinary powers, just an ordinary world. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 587. Galen walked slowly with his bag, following the flow of people, and exited the ticket gate. There was a bustle of people waiting to pick up cars outside, as well as many black cars and women soliciting guests to stay in small hotels. Each one is like a wolf looking for food in the early morning, with keen and precise eyes targeting every passenger who leaves the station without anyone to pick him up. As soon as Garen walked out, 3 or 4 middle-aged men and women rushed towards him. "Brother, do you want to stay? Would you like to take a car? It's very close, so take my seat." Garen pushed aside a few people and walked towards the place where taxis were boarded, following the queue surrounded by fences. Although Bika City is a provincial capital and the largest city in the entire state of Vajia, because Vajia is the most remote province and state in the United States, it is naturally far less developed and orderly than other states. Galen took a free tourist route map and saw the introductory route to Grando Town on it, and couldn't help but smile. Along the way, he didn't see a vampire or anything like that. The outside world was surprisingly ordinary. This world is the world of ordinary people after all. As long as they are not particularly unlucky, most people will probably never see a vampire witch in their lifetime, and they may not even recognize her when they meet her. Leaving a specific place, other areas will be exactly the same as the Earth, with no difference. Soon it was Galen's turn to get in the car. He asked the driver about the price, then opened the door and got in. There was also a boy and girl who were also going to the airport. After asking about Galen, they decided to carpool together. The two boys and girls were wearing couple t-shirts, with a big cartoon brown bear head on the white chest. Both of them were very ordinary people. Judging from their appearance, their families may not be very well off. They were sitting behind Galen and looked very sweet. Seeing the two of them, Garen couldn't help but think of his ordinary life on Earth. At that time, his first love was just like the two of them, ordinary and sweet. He might not be able to see many extraordinary things and secrets in the world, but he was immersed in himself. It is also a happy thing in our small world. Diddy. There was a text message, and Garen took out his phone and pressed it. "Captain, where have you been?" It was a bald guy. This guy was now very proud. As the deputy commander of the Nighthawk Regiment, his income also increased with his rising fame and achievements, and he became a veritable millionaire. "I also bought a villa on the famous Cross Resort Island. It's still in Baika City. You don't need your people to pick you up. I have someone else to pick you up," Garen said casually. "How can that be done?" "Boss, it's rare for you to come out once." Okay, if you need to mobilize funds, you can still use that account. You can use it yourself. If you need any money, just tell me." The driver next to him heard the sound and glanced at him. There was another look in his eyes, and he seemed to be in awe. This statement about whose person is whose person seems to have a lot of background at first glance. Garen was a little dumbfounded, but then he realized what he was saying and started to avoid using these words. After chatting with the bald man for a few words and disconnecting the phone, the retreat suddenly became quiet. Apparently, the loud voice of the bald head was partly heard by the two little guys in the back row. For a moment, Garen seemed to have turned into a savage gangster. His aura was so overwhelming that the three people who retreated did not dare to speak out. My friend has watched too many movies, so you know, it's the one about Fire Rebirth." Garen spoke up, shrugged and explained that Fire Rebirth is a popular classic gangster movie recently, with a cost of several million, and the box office actually exceeded 100 million. Was fired up. The two little guys breathed a sigh of relief, but the driver was obviously not that easy to fool, and drove the car without saying a word. The car is neither fast nor slow, and it is quite a distance from the train station to the airport. Garen raised his watch and looked at the time, 6:42. There's still more than an hour until his flight. "Are you also a student going to school?" Among the young lovers sitting in the back, the boy suddenly asked. "Me?" Garen turned around and pointed at himself. "Yes, I went to Nottington and took the SIT exam this year." "Are you the same?" Garen asked casually. "Yes, we are also going to Nottington." The boy suddenly became excited. "My name is Mike, and she is my girlfriend Jilla. We just got Scott's notification letter." "Brother, which school are you from?" "Nottington. There are 5 universities in Dunton." Garen smiled. "I'm from Gollyville." "Oh," the boy suddenly expressed his surprise in a long tone, and the girl also covered her mouth and exclaimed. Sure enough, the girl Jilla couldn't help but said, "I thought you were from Bloomington Conservatory of Music. There are all handsome guys with your temperament there." Before she could finish her words, Her boyfriend Mike twisted her thigh hard, and the two immediately started fighting. The driver shook his head and glanced at the back seat without saying anything. His eyes seemed to be thinking of his children at home. My name is Garen. Since we are all in the same city from now on, we can make an appointment to hang out together if we have the chance. Before Garen could finish speaking, the girl over there agreed immediately. That's what you said. Call me now. Don't make excuses when I see you. The two parties reported their phone numbers to each other, and the atmosphere suddenly became much closer. The two kept asking about the specific situation at Nottington. After discovering that Garen was also a guy who had never been out, they immediately began to talk endlessly about their past. Various information available online and from other channels. Time passed quickly in the lively discussion. Soon they arrived at the airport. Galen paid directly and the three of them got off the bus. The young couple were not polite and told the boy Mike's aunt would come to pick him up after getting off the plane and they would go to his aunt's house for dinner together. Garen just smiled and declined, saying that he would be picked up by someone when the time came, and that when we got to school, we could all come out to get together and have fun in the whole of Nottington. The two of them agreed wholeheartedly. Both of them looked like they had no plans at all. They were very innocent when they just left home. They went to the terminal to get their e-tickets with their ID cards. The three of them checked the flights and found that they were indeed the same flight. Just get together and form a gang. The time was not up yet, so the three of them found adjacent seats and sat in the airport waiting for the notification. While chatting quietly. What's your major? The Wolf School of Business, the best in Garyville? Birmingham Medical School? Or the Department of Archaeology? Mike is very talkative. He always has endless topics to talk about. Compared with Galleon's silent, his personality is obviously much more lively. Why are you just guessing these few? Garen put the piano case next to his legs and put the luggage bag on the seat on the other side. These are the most famous ones. It is said that the Wolf School of Business has a very powerful alumni association, in which there are many powerful world-class business geniuses who have graduated. For example, Mustang of Yakagawa Group is my most famous alumni association. A person I admire. Mike said that he was much more informed than Galen, a decent Garyville student. Aren't the other two majors the most famous places in Garyville? The Wolf School of Business has been ranked first in the Loblaws World Rankings for 3 consecutive years and is the best business school among all universities. As for the School of Medicine, Garyville holds world-class medical academic seminars every few years. World-renowned scholars and celebrities will come over on different themes and theories. Isn't this obvious enough? There is also archaeology. Your library has enough books. The Department of Archaeology has gone through archaeology, and there are still many books hidden deep in the library that cannot be dug out. They have probably been forgotten. Not to mention the exhibition and so on. Amazing. The girl next to her, Jala, clapped hard. You speak as if you are the top student in Garyville. Hee, our Scott is not bad either. Not bad, Mike immediately giggled. Anyway, freshman year has plenty of time to learn about it, so there's no rush. Galen didn't care. Going to college was just one aspect. The main thing was to get out and learn more about the differences in the world. Only by getting out of a small town can he have a deeper understanding of the outside world. The reality of the world. That's right. There are many clubs you can choose to play in your freshman year. Basic courses shouldn't be difficult. Mike was a little yearning. But it seems like you prestigious schools have to conduct interviews and re-examinations when you arrive at school. Are you nervous? Garen laughed. What's there to be nervous about? What's your SID score? Garen immediately put away his smile and looked serious. I don't want to hit you. Mike immediately covered his face. I knew it. Allah, please comfort me. I'm warning you not to call me Allah. It gives me a bad association. Jala hugged Mike and patted his back gently. Mike, who was pretending to be sad, suddenly saw the piano case at Galen's feet. "What are you talking about?" He was familiar with Jialai. After discovering that Garen was not easily angry, he became more and more relaxed. "My hobby." Garen picked up the piano case and handed it over. Mike quickly opened the zipper, and the long piano case looked like a musical instrument, but he didn't know what was inside. Open the lid, and there is a dark red exquisite ancient violin quietly placed in the groove inside. "Oh, beautiful," Mike whistled. "At first glance, it's not a cheap product. It can't be compared with children from poor families like us. It's just a musical instrument." Galen looked at Mike's sad eyes speechlessly. "It's just a musical instrument, nothing more." Mike covered his chest as if he was heartbroken. "It's just my 10 years of living expenses, no, maybe 100 years of living expenses. My heart is going to be broken." "Okay, stop being weird, be careful not to break it." Jilla was obviously more nervous and careful, and quickly snatched it from Mike's hand. After admiring the exquisite body of the piano for a while, he carefully installed it and handed it back to Garen. The three of them were chatting and laughing. People were coming and going at the airport around them, which attracted the attention of some peers. Several young people checking in around them all looked over here. Garen's exquisite facial features and perfect, delicate fair skin without a trace of blemishes made even some girls look at him carefully with envy. When I glance at it as I pass by, I can't help but turn around and glance a second time, pretending to be looking for someone. The time soon came, and the announcer's voice read out the number of the Galleon 3-person flight. After passing through the security check normally, the lighter hidden in the sole of Mike's shoe was found. He walked out with a sad face as if he had lost a relative. Holding Jera and pretending to cry in pain made the young lady in charge of the security inspection feel quite sorry. Looking at Garen beside him, he was speechless for a while. After waiting for a while, they checked in, passed through the boarding channel, and got on the plane. The three of them found their own seats. There was no coincidence. They were completely separate, with one person in the front, middle, and back. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 588. But soon, Mike pulled Garrison to talk about 11 Kyokyu, and quickly changed his seat to the position next to Garen. "What a coincidence, we are together again." He sat down proudly opposite Garen. "There used to be a young girl there." "Yes, what a coincidence." Garen helplessly put on a "you can do it" expression. "The plane is a small one, with 3 seats on one side and 2 seats on the other, divided into 2 rows on the left and right sides. They happened to be in the 3-seater position." Mike and Jilla were sitting opposite Galen. Outside them was the young girl who was replaced. She was a yellow-skinned Oriental girl who looked very quiet. Wearing a black puff-sleeved shirt, a dark red knee-length skirt, and actually quite mature black stockings. The 2 people on the right side of Galen are an old couple. They are both gray-haired old people. They are estimated to be over 60 years old. They are actually getting on a plane and going out for a run at this age. Speaking of which, Garen originally had a good habit of respecting the elderly and caring for the young, but now facing these 2 old people who are much younger than him, for some reason, he just doesn't feel any respect for the elderly. When he thought that he was really much older than them, he only cared about the young and had no sense of respecting the elders. He just felt a little emotional. Every time he saw the frail appearance of the elderly, he would become more determined to move forward. It doesn't matter if the body is old, but the scary thing is that the heart is old. If the heart is old, then it is really old. It is lifeless and has no hope anymore. It is just muddle along every day, with no motivation to move forward, no pursuit, and no vitality. An aging mentality will further drive the aging of the body. So Garen never feels old. Speaking of which, there are a lot of airplane students here. Mike couldn't stand still anymore and stood up frequently to look around. They are all students who went to Nottington. Maybe many of them are our alumni. You also went to school in Nottington. The Oriental girl with black stockings on the far side suddenly asked. Her American spoken English is not very natural, a bit too standard, and every word is spoken in a very formal way. It sounds like someone suddenly speaks to you in Mandarin like a CCTV host in daily life, which is not ordinary awkward. Although the accent is pretty standard. Yeah, are you an international student? Are you from the East? Mike was decisively happy. As a talkative person, the greatest happiness is that someone can answer his questions anytime and anywhere. Your speaking skills are of good standard. Really? Thank you very much for your compliment. The girl immediately smiled and rolled her eyes. My English name is Kelly, what's your name? Mike, my name is, this is my wife Jilla. Oh, don't hit me, I was wrong. Mike was grabbed hard and finally pointed at Garen. That's Garen. He has been pursuing my wife for many years, but unfortunately I still won her over. Ha ha ha. Ah. After another airstrike on his thigh, Mike finally became honest. The four of them exchanged names with each other and suddenly became much more familiar with each other. Garen lazily leaned against the window of the plane, looking at the airport ground outside the round window, seemingly uninterested in talking. On the other hand, Mike and Corey were chatting happily. Corey is a student at the Conservatory of Music, the Bloomington Conservatoire that Mike mentioned earlier. She is good at piano. What makes Galen happy is that Mike, the talkative one, finally has someone to restrain him. Kelly, a girl from the East, obviously regards him as a brush for practicing his spoken English. She brags and chats with him vigorously. After the plane took off, the girl continued to work tirelessly. Talk to Mike. Half an hour later, the girl became more energetic and paid no attention to the details of Mike's family life, although it was obvious that she was not interested in Mike, but just to try out word pronunciation in different fields. After another half hour, Mike was completely intimidated and he felt like he could no longer love. It would be fine if the other party was chatting about a topic he was interested in, but the problem was that Kelly would always say suddenly when he was blowing the most vigorously, I didn't seem to understand what you just said. Then the atmosphere turned cold. Corey's spoken English is very standard, but she has no experience with slang, which seriously affects Mike's talkative nature. After asking Jera for help many times, his girlfriend decisively stepped in to replace Mike and started talking to Corey. Garen sat aside and occasionally stood up as a habit to scan the people around him. He still didn't see any blood vampires. It seemed that the town of Grandeur was a magical and legendary place that only existed in movies and TV series. He left there. The outside is just an ordinary world. There are no witches, no vampires, just ordinary people. In this environment, he almost doubted whether he had returned to the original Earth without any extraordinary powers, as if he had returned to a period of life in which he had no special abilities. He no longer paid attention to his attributes, nor his martial arts status, but truly regarded himself as an ordinary person again, just an ordinary passenger, an ordinary student, sitting on the plane heading to school. This feeling almost made him lose it. After more than an hour of chatting, the curtain finally came to an end and the plane was about to land. The four of them were very familiar with each other at this time. Kaylee, an Oriental girl who seemed to be going abroad for the first time, enthusiastically exchanged phone numbers and online KL contact information with the three of them, and agreed to call each other to confirm after getting off the plane. Mike, who was already listless, seemed to have a certain phobia towards Corey, but Jilla had a very happy chat with her. Although Galen didn't speak much, he seemed to be more favored by Kelly. Obviously, this restrained style is in line with the aesthetic concepts of Eastern people, although Galen's neutral and beautiful face and figure played a big role. After feeling a little stuffy in the ears, the plane vibrated slightly and finally landed. After sliding for a while, It slowly stopped. After connecting to the passage and opening the cabin door, the passengers stood up one after another. Many of the young people who were strangers on the plane were already relatively familiar with them. Apparently, they all got to know each other through chatting on the plane, like Kelly Gallen and others. There are 2 or 3, all college students who come to Nottington to attend school. Following the passage out of the cabin, the 4 of them formed a group, went downstairs to pick up their checked luggage, and then dragged it towards the exit square. There are already many people holding different signs at the exit square in the airport to pick up the plane. Gallen sent a text message to the person arranged by his mother not to pick him up. Then he glanced casually and saw the pickup person at Gollyville University. She was a dark-skinned young girl, probably a senior at the school. She did not stand in the most conspicuous place, but stood alone in the right corner holding the sign. A young white boy was already walking towards her. Garen and Mike said goodbye and walked over there. "Welcome to the new students. New handsome guys and beauties," the dark-skinned girl shouted loudly towards Garen. "This is the pickup point for Gollyville. All new students, please follow me. Don't get lost. We have transfers." Behind Garen came some boys and girls in 2s and 3s. The tragedy was that apart from Garen, there seemed to be no other good-looking boys or girls. Among the more than 10 people, 8 of them wore glasses, and they didn't know how to dress up at first glance. Type, the rest looks serious, and has a bookish aura more or less on his body. "Every freshman is like this, isn't there still a good guy like this?" The white boy who went over first seemed to be a pickup person, patting the dark-skinned girl on the shoulder with sympathy. Well, then it was a simple team formation. After a group of people waited for a while, several more people came over one after another, all with the same nerdy appearance. It was not until there was no one left at all that the dark-skinned girl led the team out of the airport. No one spoke to each other along the way. Each of these freshmen was taciturn. Even if someone wanted to speak, they were suppressed by the silent atmosphere. Gollyville is a world-famous top medical and business school. It has the world's #1 business school and a top 10 medical school. Naturally, the scores required for admission are all top-notch. This is true for domestic students, not to mention foreign students. Many international students must first pass numerous tests at home and make breakthroughs before they can find the opportunity to come to this top university. Behind this is countless sweat and days and nights under the desk lamp. There are countless nights. It can be said that no one in this group is good, and any one of them will be an absolute top academic. Perhaps some individual qualifications will have a series of national level and international level award-winning records for their peers. Garen was able to enter the school so easily. In addition to his top-notch scores, he undoubtedly also gained some of his parents' halo. His qualifications are among the least impressive of the bunch. The examiner who originally came to Gollyville even just listened to him play the violin quietly, then looked at his results, and that was it. Then he went to have a drink with his father, Emma. To sum it up, he is the standard tall, rich, and handsome person among this group of people. He is not rich in terms of wealth, but in terms of knowledge and background. After getting on the white bus, there was silence in the car. More than a dozen pairs of glasses stared at the dark-skinned senior sister with white light, making her swallow what she originally wanted to say again, and she had to sit down in frustration. The only sound along the way was the hum of cars. Obviously not all freshmen like silence so much, but there is no doubt that this group of people may be like this. Garen glanced at the boy on his left. He had a mustache and sunken eyes, looking like an AIDS patient in the late stages. He was very focused on playing with the small Rubik's Cube in his hand. It was a 4th-order Rubik's Cube, with 4x4 grids on one side. The little Rubik's Cube in his hand would return to a single color for a while, and then be messed up into mixed colors again. "Do you like the Rubik's Cube? Do you want to try it?" The boy glanced at Garen sideways, with a look of contempt in his eyes. In his opinion, most students who like to dress up and take care of themselves are just show-offs. Even if they can go to top universities, it won't do much. After all, studying things like grooming and maintenance also requires energy and time. A person's time and energy are limited. If you spend more here, there will naturally be less. It is impossible to cover everything. Such people may be called because of their talent. He is an all-rounder, but when he reaches a higher level, he is just a mediocre person. He only knows a little bit better than ordinary people in every aspect. I've never played this before. Garen took the Rubik's Cube in his hand. The Rubik's Cube that was already in a mess was turned left and right by him, twisted, and then clicked. Forward. Garen put the Rubik's Cube broken into two sections back into the boy's hand. My hands are stronger. I'm sorry. The boy blinked, glanced at Garen, then looked at the Rubik's Cube in his hand, and swallowed. He originally thought that the opponent would either solve the Rubik's Cube at high speed, be helpless, or think slowly. The result was unexpected. Garen was just careless. He turned around twice and just found some ideas. He immediately collapsed as soon as he exerted force. He really didn't mean it, because he fell into the state of completely treating himself as an ordinary person. The moment he found his idea, he unconsciously exerted a little force. Silently stuffing the Rubik's Cube back, neither of them knew what to say. It's okay. Maybe it's a little worn inside because I've been playing with it for a long time. Get off the car and I'll give you the same one. No need, I have many more like this. The boy put away the broken Rubik's Cube. Then the two fell into silence again, neither knowing what to say. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 589. As the school bus drove along, Garen sat on his seat and looked out the window. There are no extraordinary powers around, there are just ordinary people, ordinary environment, ordinary weather, everything is ordinary and ordinary. The scenery outside the window went from being empty and spacious at the beginning, to being filled with tall buildings, and then to a small manor full of green grass. The sky was a little dark, with dark clouds floating faintly. The school bus moved slowly along the slightly curved driveway. From time to time, it passed a manor-style house on the grassy plain by the roadside, some with black and red walls, and some with pure white walls. From time to time, you can still see a small patch of clarinet trees left between the houses. We're almost there, everyone, get ready to get off the bus. The dark-skinned team leader stood up and said loudly. Vomit. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a girl in the back seat of the car who couldn't help but vomited into the plastic bag. His face was pale and his expression was painful. Oh, the thin boy next to Garen covered his nose in pain, unable to bear the unpleasant sour smell. Garen also frowned and covered his nose. We're almost there, hold on, the dark-skinned leader shouted loudly. Finally, the car slowed down, turned a corner and stopped. A group of freshmen quickly got out of the car. Garen squeezed in the crowd and got out of the car, taking a deep breath. The University of Gollyville is not located in the nearby urban area of Nottington, but in the suburbs. The entire university forms a large university town on its own, where students, tutors, professors, etc. gather together. A large living area and associated ancillary service industries. These service industries then attracted some foreign residents to settle, and the additional residents once again attracted some daily commerce and trade industries, eventually forming the town of Gollyville. A strong girl wearing a yellow t-shirt led a group of students in yellow t-shirts towards the new students, introducing them loudly as they walked. Welcome this year's freshmen, welcome to Garyville, she shouted with a loud smile. We are the reception group for old students, come with me and bring your salutes. A group of freshmen followed this group of yellow t-shirts obediently. They enthusiastically helped the freshmen carry their luggage, and then continued to introduce the situation of the school. The person who helped Garen carry things was a tall and beautiful senior, but she couldn't be fooled by her beautiful and pure appearance. This guy slapped away another strong girl who wanted to help Garen carry things, and then took the initiative to come over and become temporary tour guide in Garan. Through the introduction of the senior named Serena, Galen got a rough idea of Galaville's situation. The entire campus is a large square, divided into 3 large campuses and many small campuses, which you will gradually become familiar with later. But the most important thing to pay attention to is not this, but the first important thing after the arrival of new students: choosing accommodation. On-campus accommodation is more expensive, but it is safe. You have to check out off-campus accommodation on your own. Surrounding residential buildings and some small company buildings are all options for renting. Freshmen in Garyville have a heavy workload and need to adjust their schedules. A group of people noisily walked through the school's cocky stone arch and entered the wall-less university campus. There are leafy green trees everywhere and neatly manicured green grass. On the sloped lawns next to some houses, there are some couples sitting close to each other making love to each other. When introducing the difference between student apartments and student dormitories, senior sister Serena suddenly changed the topic and asked, "Garen, where are you from?" "Where are you from?" "I'm from Bika City, so I'm from Ghana," Galen responded and replied. As reserved as those Oriental international students, Serena held out her chest and her eyes were slightly provocative. She is very beautiful, with long brown and black hair hanging on her shoulders, big and clear black eyes, a bit narrow and charming, a straight nose, a pink mouth, and a slight hint of composure at the corners of her mouth. Especially her eyebrows, which flew sideways to both sides, gave her a provocative and barbaric temperament. Tighten the black jeans on your lower body. If you're in Ghana, you have to be careful. There are sometimes cliques here. People from one state form a group. There are not many students in Ghana. You can consider finding someone who is stronger. More societies will join. Well, thanks for the suggestion. After introducing the situation along the way, Serena took the initiative to ask Galen for his phone number, sent him downstairs to the student dormitory, and gave him a number plate and key before leaving. The dormitory is built on a green lawn. It is a vermilion mountain-shaped building with 7 or 8 floors. There are some public exercise facilities on the lawn opposite, such as swings, single and parallel bars, and bicycle machines. People were coming and going in front of the building, and students were coming in and out. Standing at the door, Garen felt like many people were looking at him. I carried my bag into the dormitory and went upstairs along the clean white floor tiles that still smelled like disinfectant. When I got to the 3rd floor, I found my temporary dormitory according to the number plate. I opened the door and found it was empty with no one in it. There were many people coming and going from time to time in the large corridor outside the door. Some students were running around in only their underwear, and some were shouting with their bare feet on the floor tiles. The dormitory is a quadruple room, with a standard 4 bedrooms and 1 living room, and each person has his or her own bedroom. Galen found a room as his bedroom, moved his things in, laid them out, and arranged them. On the table in the large living room were 4 Garyville freshman handbooks, pocket books with red casings. He picked it up and flipped through it. Inside the hard cover were pages as soft as cloth. Turning back and closing the door, Garen took the book and walked to the balcony. He reached out and touched the surface of the balcony. There was no trace of dust on the cold and smooth tile surface. Looking out from the balcony, you can see a gray spire in the distance among the trees. A big Ben can be seen hanging on the top of the tower. Between the spire and the dormitory is a large undulating lawn, with winding gray roads in the middle. Many students are chatting and reading on the lawn. The sky, which was still a bit gloomy just now, has now become completely bright again, and the warm sunlight shines down, reflecting the entire lawn into emerald green. I glanced around habitually and saw that the grass was full of normal people, without any exception. Garen took a deep breath, feeling as if he was the only one in the world that was abnormal. The secret martial arts, secret techniques, secret skills, and superpowers on him all seemed to be completely unrealistic. They were completely useless in this environment, as if they should not exist at all. It's about what vampire movie it should be in to make sense. On this campus where ordinary people gather, he, like most students, must abide by the rules of the small courtyard and participate in freshman activities honestly. He took out his cell phone and called home. Toot. Toot. Hey, are you at school? Mother Terry's voice came immediately. We're already here, in the dormitory. Everything is going well. The freshman handbook says that we have to go to the auditorium in the afternoon. Garen replied casually, Mom, has Raphael been here since I left? Here she comes, crying. She took what Jason gave her and ran away. Therese seemed to be a little melancholy in her tone. It's a pity that she is too far away from you. Maybe you two can be together. Maybe. Where is Dad? Vivian, what is Jason doing? Your dad is making out with the new beautiful graduate student, little Vivian is drawing, and with Arissa, Jason went to his old place to read. Well, I can only wish him success. But to be honest, I feel that Jason doesn't match Aishiro's temperament at all. If he doesn't revise his dream of being a boxer, his wish is probably a mystery. Garen was speechless. I guess so. When I came back after you left, I heard that Aishiro's hand was scratched. He still insisted on going to the bookstore to work. The injury was a bit serious and there was a lot of blood. The little girl was very strong and her expression did not change at all. The slap was so with such a long wound, Jason would have burst into tears if the key was replaced. Therese said helplessly. Is Aishiro injured? Garen was stunned. After spending so many years together, he knew Aishiro's skills. He had good close combat skills and a sense of self-protection. Such people would generally be very good. To protect yourself, it would be very unusual to slap such a long wound. Yeah, right after you left, there was some chaos in the town. There were several fights, and several gangsters in the North District were seriously injured and sent to the hospital. Galen's micro-campaign, could it be that Raphael vented his emotions and brought manpower to cause trouble for the vampires? He thought about this possibility. Glendory on the other end of the phone and Gollyville campus here in Nottington are completely different worlds. He has basically confirmed that in addition to having no special extraordinary power, the outside world also does not have the special aura of the Alicia sisters. Elsewhere, everything is normal, as if grandeur is the center of extraordinary power in the entire world. Everything goes there. Not just Gollyville, but the rest of the local investigative reports Galen has produced through Nighthawk over the years. Even on the battlefield, there were basically no vampires. After being tested by Nighthawk's group of people, they found that they had never seen anything similar to them before. It feels like the vampire witches are in one world and the other ordinary people are in another world. There seems to be a deep barrier and isolation zone between the two sides. Garen stood in Nottington, feeling as if he was far away from the center of the whirlpool. He had a feeling that sooner or later, where Grandeur was, or where Sister Alicia was, all kinds of troublesome and complicated events would happen, like Cien Fran in the secret martial world and Baker Stone Eye in the totem world were the trendsetters of each era and the central figures of that era. And now that he is far away from the protagonists of these times, he naturally has a very normal and peaceful life. Mom, if you have anything special about Sister Alicia, please give me a call, okay? Garen thought of this and lowered his voice. Oh, are you interested in both sisters? Do you want to take them all? He is indeed my best son, Tries was really excited. I have long thought that these two sisters are good. As Alicia grows up, she is also a great beauty. Her sister is a graduate student at Sardinian University and she is definitely worthy of you. Don't worry about getting married. It's not a problem to go to a small foreign country to change your nationality. Find a big bed and play fun games at night. Haha, sister, you really have sunshine, my son. Especially Aisha, your mother is a psychologist, she is the type who is cold on the outside and hot on the inside. Once she has spotted someone, she will never give up. She has found you alone. This is simply the best. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 590. Galen hung up the phone decisively without saying anything. Tries kept talking as soon as she got excited, and she wouldn't even pause for half an hour. I checked the time and saw that it was still early. I went to the freshman ceremony after dinner in the afternoon. It was a good time to walk around and get to know the campus. After packing up my things and about to go out, the dormitory was opened in front of me, and 3 tall and thin boys wearing glasses came in. The 3 tall guys all wore glasses, dragging their suitcases and chatting and laughing with each other. The leader with a short cut and glasses saw Garen in the dormitory at a glance. He was startled, as if his eyes were dazzled by the handsome guy's halo. "It's good now, there is hope for dormitory friendship," he murmured words he couldn't understand. "There's no hope, maybe we can still find Gianna and the others' dormitory," a man with glasses behind him murmured. "Now who else dares to say that our dormitory is poor and thin?" "Ha ha ha," the last boy laughed funny. Garen stretched out his hand and shook hands with the 3 of them. "Messi. Alexander. Gaudierlin." The American spoken English with 3 different accents made Galen sound a little difficult. After the joke was over, several people introduced themselves and chatted for a while. Alexander had relatives here, so he hurriedly said and went out to find someone. Gaudierin had a girlfriend and went out with him. They also saw Galen's somewhat cold reaction. He seemed gentle and polite, but in fact he kept a clear distance from everyone. This kind of person looked friendly, but in fact difficult to deal with. Both of them like to joke and tell some cold jokes, but for some reason, Garen doesn't know what expression to use when facing their cold jokes. Is it better to smile, or smile? Soon, the result of the smile came out, and it was cold. When a person tells a joke and no one laughs, he or she will immediately feel uncomfortable and embarrassed. So the 2 of them went out decisively. However, Messi's personality is really a bit rough, and he chatted with Galen without any care. When I heard that he was going to go out and get to know the campus, I decided to join him. The 2 simply packed up and went out together. They all changed into t-shirts, jeans, and sneakers, and when they left the dormitory building, they did not take the main road, but ran around casually on the lawn. Together we went to see the nearby campus of the school, the Wisher Spire. There are 3 in the school, 1 in each major campus, and a selected group of students are responsible for ringing the bell every day. The simple bells add a distant charm to the whole school. Isn't it cool? It feels like an ancient monastery, and we are the elite and mysterious monks inside, Messi said with excitement, reaching out to grab the leaves of the passing trees from time to time. "It feels good," Garen nodded. "I heard from my brother that you can choose from many clubs in Gollyville during your freshman year, but it's best not to join too many. The tasks in your freshman year are relatively arduous. If you lack energy and get poor evaluations, you will be rejected by many professional classes you want to choose." Messi said casually, "What major do you want to go into?" "Not sure yet." "Don't you have a year to think about it yourself?" "Take your time," Garen replied with a smile. "I plan to get into computers. My computer skills are pretty good. Once you get used to it, you can find everything inside. Although the computers in Gollyville are not the best, they are much better than those outside," he said as he walked away, still squeezing the purulent pimples on his face with his hands. The 2 chatted all the way, and from time to time they passed bustling old buildings of different heights on both sides of the lawn. Most of them were decorated with arc and triangular patterns. The walls looked like broken glass from a distance. From time to time, there are easels placed on the lawn and beside the road. Picture frameworks of various sizes are placed on the shelf, occupying a small area of lawn in rows or scattered, forming a small art exhibition, with a few students inside. Wander around and admire works of different styles. Sometimes there are students or professors on the lawn slope, all messy, holding cellos, or accordions, flutes and trumpets, playing selflessly. Apart from these, there are more ordinary students holding brick textbooks and reciting medical words. There was a faint sound of bel canto singing coming from a building in the distance. It was probably some club holding a concert. The two of them were inconspicuous among the students in twos and threes, and they walked slowly on the school lawn. I hung out until lunchtime in the afternoon, had something to eat in the school cafeteria, paid with cash using my freshman number plate, and then went to the freshman ceremony in the auditorium. The vice president spoke, the heads of departments of the 3 major campuses spoke, and a bunch of people below applauded. Then, various necessary things such as student ID cards, cafeteria cards, library cards, etc. are issued, as well as a medical card with a number on it. Each student will be assigned a doctor to be responsible for the treatment of physical conditions. The corresponding doctor is on the card. Name, department location, working hours, appointment phone number. If you feel something is wrong with your body, you must first make an appointment with your doctor in charge, who will create your own medical file. But Galleon probably won't need this. After the ceremony, the auditorium is ready to start special lectures for freshmen to educate freshmen on what they need to pay attention to when enrolling. Garin did not listen, but was pulled out of the auditorium by Messi. A large group of people from various clubs were waiting on the grass outside at tables. It was just a simple table with someone sitting behind it, and a wooden sign with something like XX Club written on it. The seniors in charge of recruiting people at least looked at it. The handsome guys and beauties in the big club, who are pleasing to the eye, use all kinds of means to bombard the stunned freshmen with benefits. At that time, there were a few freshmen who couldn't resist the temptation of the beautiful senior sister. They didn't even ask for the name of the club, so they pulled her over to sign and join. Messi had a clear goal. He happily squeezed through the crowd and pulled Gallon to a remote corner. Beauty Appreciation Club has a few words clearly written on a white wooden sign. The senior sitting behind the desk had a gentle expression on his face, and his seemingly handsome features revealed a strong sense of vulgarity. Well, I'd better forget it. As soon as Garin saw the senior's eyes gleaming, he suddenly stood up and ran over, and he couldn't help but feel cold all over. I glanced around and saw that there was a recruitment area for a good-sized club not far away. I'll go over there and have a look. He quickly broke away from Messi and strode towards the club over there. Regardless of Macy's shouting behind him, as soon as Garin walked into this area, several beautiful and gentle seniors came over. Each exhibition's offensive introduction starts from the advantages of its own society. Generally, handsome guys and beautiful women are their favorites. Such high-quality resources are not bad even if they are used as a vase in the club. At least they are very tempting to newcomers when recruiting people. Galleons clearly fall into this category of high-quality resources. So soon there were 4 or 5 beautiful seniors with different styles coming next to him. Although in Galen's eyes, these beautiful seniors are indeed far less beautiful than Raphael, but in Gollyville, which is full of top students, they are considered very good. The clubs here happen to be all about sanda, fighting, boxing and the like. There are different sanda schools, and some are even schools in fighting games. Here, you can just pay some club formation fees, rent a venue, and recruit a few people to save whoever is the one to form a club. As long as it is not anti-human or antisocial, the school they are all encouraging and supportive. Garen frowned as the noisy introductions filled his ears. Junior Garen, how about joining our fighting club? A slightly familiar female voice suddenly sounded clearly in the noise, with clear enunciation. Garen followed the familiar voice and looked over, and it turned out to be senior sister Serena who was leading him. In a blink of an eye, this guy changed into a black tight silk skirt, a super short one, but his legs were made of tight white jeans and brown shorts. Leather boots, hair tied into a ponytail, and a muscular man beside him. How about it? Join us. If someone bullies you, tell me my name. It's up to you whether you want to learn fighting or not. Serena was obviously choosing a target from the beginning when she picked up new students. No wonder the strong girl at the beginning didn't dare to resist when she oppressed her. Fighting club. The biggest one. Garen noticed the club with the largest number of tables and the most people in this area. Right. Okay, Garen readily agreed. Serena was the only girl he saw in this school who could truly be considered a beauty. Fighting is also one of his strengths. After receiving the agreement, Serena grabbed Garen and walked towards the club. Along the way, there were several smaller similar clubs who wanted to continue persuading them, but she blocked them all. Then you need to sign up for your school ID, dormitory, and record your admission to the basic class. Under the friendly gaze of a bunch of strong men and beauties, Garen gloriously joined the fighting club and became a member of it. Then she was forced to sit behind the table by Serena. The first task was to sit here as a mascot and sign. Remuneration is something that all the new students in Galen need to solve and understand, and there are people who can help him figure it out. The girls sitting next to Garen were very interested in Garen's personal information and kept asking and teasing him. The recruitment activity lasted until it was almost dark in the evening, and the club members collected their things and prepared to finish. In fact, the fighting club does not have any heavy activities. They just occasionally organize training together, teach and give guidance. There will be internal competition activities in the club's rented venue to determine the position and status in the club. When someone kicks in, they will be there. Take action. Many fighting and martial arts enthusiasts also need guidance from experts. Guidance activities will be held from time to time in the club. A certain amount of guidance fee will be determined according to the position in the club. It is not much, but when there are more people, it will be a big income. Of course, there is also free guidance, which is given by senior enthusiasts in the community and people who are not experts. Occasionally, the club will send people to participate in outside competitions. If they get ranked, the school will even give out a lot of money. The fighting club has won third place in the National College Student Fighting Competition (MBL), and often participates in International College Student Free Sparring Competitions (RAB). They also have a certain say in the school board of directors. Naturally, the elite members of the club will also have certain privileges in the school. This is also the key reason why fighting clubs are becoming more and more prosperous. I learned from the seniors in several clubs that last year the club also spent money to hire the former RAB world champion in the fighting world. Their senior, Cassie Bo, was a coach, and there were also several people who were notorious in the unrestricted fighting competition. As a coach with a great master, he will definitely be more confident in this year's game. Such a lineup and such formality are undoubtedly a huge temptation for fans who love fighting and fighting. Just within half an hour of Garen sitting here, the club has recruited more than 10 people one after another, which is simply brutal compared to other clubs. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 591. The club was recruiting people until the end of the night, and the time for the activities was set before Garen and Messi returned to the dormitory together. The next day is the second assessment and interview for the freshmen of the school. This assessment is actually just a re-examination. As long as there are no major problems, everyone can pass. Galen mingled with a group of people, made a set of test papers, answered a few questions from the interviewer, and ended the re-examination process easily. Next came the trivial and tedious things. I had to prepare the school textbooks myself. I went to the bookstore and bought a whole new set, which cost several thousand yuan. I also contacted the legal consultant arranged by my mother, Terry's, to buy daily necessities. School life is quite easy for me. Although the courses are full every day, for Galen, the classroom professors and tutors here will not care about you even if you are sleeping, as long as you don't make any noise, and they will ask them to stand up and answer a few questions. After a few problems, Garen solved them perfectly, and then the professors and tutors ignored him. Universities in this world are similar to those on Earth. There is not much difference. The only difference is that the courses are more difficult. You need to submit some thesis reports every once in a while. These thesis reports require a lot of professional information and books. You need to read the reading materials vigorously and go back and forth between the library and dormitories. The other 3 people in the dormitory soon fell into dire straits. They held the tome on their heads and gnawed until midnight, unable to sleep. Within a few months of entering school, the thin people became even thinner, and the fat people lost a lot of weight. I only sleep 4 or 5 hours a day. Although it is not a professional course, the basic courses have high requirements and are deep enough, which is a heavy burden for several people. I heard that Professor Alvin is going to hold a lecture in the medical district. Are you going? Macy asked loudly while sitting on the sofa in the living room with a box of lunch. There was a lot of information and books in front of him. It seemed that he was planning to go there. Read the information while eating. I'm going to go. Professor Alvin explained the questions in the last class very carefully and thoroughly. You might get some good results. Alexander was using a pencil to outline the key points. I have club activities. Galen shrugged. He was sitting on the balcony, with a cup of hot coffee on the windowsill next to him. He was holding a copy of the Nottington Morning News that was just delivered today, reading and drinking coffee. Messi gave him a sad look. While my roommate is in pain preparing thesis materials, Galen, don't you think your current appearance is too dazzling? The other 2 people looked over at them with extremely unbalanced looks. While they were studying, Garen was sleeping, practicing secret martial arts. While they were preparing their homework papers, Garen was drinking coffee and reading the newspaper. While they were going to attend lectures, Garen also had to go to the club to participate in activities. Don't you think so? Garen put down his coffee cup. I also did a thesis. It's just a little faster. How about a little faster? Messi exclaimed exaggeratedly. Sometimes I really want to strangle you to death. Garen looked at him with pity. Ah! Don't look at me like that, Messi continued to yell. Do you think everyone is like you? The information you just need is in the books you have read. Who said I was lucky? Garen continued to shrug. I don't know why, but when I see your smiling face, I have the urge to punch someone. Messi and Galen have been getting along during this time, and because they get along well, their relationship is getting better and better. Okay, stop arguing. My hand shook and the curve became a straight line again. Gadiaran, who was drawing the picture carefully, complained. The 3 of them continued to study hard. Garen shook his head, lowered his head and continued to read the newspaper, taking a sip of hot coffee from time to time. He took out his CD player, opened it and put in a song, put on his earplugs and listened to it. When he couldn't help hearing it, he closed his eyes and hummed a few words. Glancing at the 3 people who were still working hard, he showed a trace of contempt on his face. You are so weak. Don't stop me, I'm going to strangle this bastard. Messi finally couldn't help it, jumped up and rushed towards Galen. Come on. Don't worry. Beat him. The 2 people behind shouted loudly. Galen laughed and twirled around the balcony, trying not to be caught by Messi. Such jokes between the 2 of them were common during this period, although there were indeed some reasons why the 3 of them couldn't stand the Gallians. Mainly because he was playing while you were busy, but in the end the professor praised him instead of himself. Naturally, Messi returned to his seat angrily, suddenly realizing that his time had been wasted by Galleons again, and yelled that he had skipped lunch and had to work. Garin checked the time, wandered out of the dormitory, agreed to bring lunch to the other two people, and slowly walked to the nearby cafeteria on the campus. If there is class in the morning, I go to school. When there is no class, I check information books and do my homework. I occasionally go to concerts, see exhibitions, play ball, and then go to the fighting club to watch their training. This is Galen's college life in the past few months. Gallaville's studies are extremely heavy, and the tutors and professors have very high requirements for students. It is not like the previous domestic universities in the Earth era, where thesis reports can be spliced here and there. Even daily papers require reading a lot of materials and works, and they also need to have their own. Only with a certain level of insight can a qualified evaluation be obtained. The so-called assessment of a course is actually mostly decided by the professor. If he says your paper is good and if you pass it, you will get the credit. If he says your writing is too bad, even if you are in every class this semester, in the end, it may also be a failing result. He went to the cafeteria and ordered a standard meal for 3 people. When he was walking back, Garin happened to meet Senior Serena, who had just finished class with a book in her arms. "This afternoon's event is a bit important, so be sure to come," Serena said solemnly. "Somewhat important? What is it?" Garin was a little surprised. "The president's internship is about to leave, and a new president will be elected. There will be a nice fighting competition," Serena said slightly excitedly. "You want to participate too?" Garin gave her a strange look. "Or someone related to you, otherwise why are you so excited?" "You're right, my sister is going to run for election, so you can help me shout a few words when the time comes," Serena laughed. "Okay," Garin nodded. The most unremarkable life made him feel bored to the point of boredom, and he just happened to have some novel activities to check out. After returning to the dormitory and bringing lunch to the other 2 people, Galen returned to his bedroom, lay on his back on the bed, opened his laptop, and read the message records on KL. Mike Jella and the Oriental girl Kelly, whom he met on the road, all left messages for him. After replying to them one by one, and then looking at the situation at home, Raphael wrote a few sentences to him, but it was very short. Attached is a recent photo of her, taken on the beach. In the evening, Raphael was squatting on the beach and building a sandcastle in a black dress. "Remember to bring me a gift when you come back. Raphael." Garin thought for a moment. "Are you still in Grandeur?" "Garin." I didn't expect a reply right away. "Well, I don't plan to go to college. I won't learn anything anyway." "Raphael. Is this what your grandma meant? Does she agree?" "Galen. Yeah." "Raphael." Garin didn't know what to say. He didn't know the circle of witches, but college qualifications were of no use to Raphael. They were just a waste of time. I asked her about her current situation again and turned off KL. In the afternoon, it was still the same as usual, without any disturbance. Garin felt that he had completely become a normal student during this period. "I went to 2 classes, had dinner, and went straight to the venue where the fighting club was. It was in a large dance studio that used to be used for dancing on the old campus. When Galen arrived, there were already many people in the classroom. The large space in the middle was covered with a thick layer of foam mats. The old members sat on one side and the new members sat on the other side, clearly distinguishing each other. Several old members were introducing the club's situation to the new members in detail. In the corner on the other side, 2 muscular and dark muscular men with short-cut hair were each exercising their muscles. One was pulling a butterfly machine, and the other was lying on his back doing sit-ups. Those are 2 external coaches in the club. Here, Serena was surrounded by a group of club members, seemingly chatting about something. She saw Garen coming in from a distance and said hello to him. Garen nodded. He was familiar with Serena in the club, and the others were not very close, so he changed into black training clothes in the dressing room nearby and sat down cross-legged next to the newcomer circle. The new coach is a senior member of the club. He is loudly explaining the rules of the club to the newcomers. The rules of the club are almost explained, and then there is the scope of daily activity training. Now please stand up for the newcomers who have practiced fighting before. The senior coach, who had been talking for a long time, suddenly said this after drinking some water. Among the dozens of newcomers, 5 or 6 stood up immediately, and a few looked hesitant. Coach, does self-taught count? Of course not. The senior shook his head. Garen then stood up and walked to the side with 5 or 6 people. Serena over there also looked over with some surprise, and seemed a little surprised that Garen had practiced fighting before. Among the 5 or 6 people, 2 were girls. One had muscles in his waist and arms and did not look particularly strong. The other is petite and has a ponytail, and seems to be just here to learn how to prevent wolves. Even among such a large group of newcomers, she is pretty. Looking at her solemn and delicate face, fair skin, and serious look, it actually made some boys in the club whistle. You come out. No whistles are allowed. If you don't want to, you can leave the club, the senior coach said loudly and unceremoniously. The other 3 boys all have ordinary faces. They are just ordinary fighting enthusiasts. They have watched the training for so long, and now they are finally joining in person. They all look a little excited on their faces. When Garen was observing other people, he didn't notice that others were also observing him. Whether in the eyes of old students or newcomers, this new member seems to have looked a little different from ordinary newcomers in the past few months. Previously he was just watching the club training, but now that the newcomers were officially joining the training, he still looked as calm as before, without excitement or fear. It seems like just a normal daily exercise. Looking at the fair and delicate skin on his hands and neck, you can tell that this person is not the type who likes to exercise regularly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 592. You don't need to participate in training. Serena came over and whispered to Garen. It's okay, I'm bored anyway, Garen replied with a smile. As an extremely rare handsome guy in the club, Garen's original mission was actually to be a vase. However, there was no news about things like the black wooden cross recently, and Garen himself was idle and bored, so he got up and came over to play. After getting to know each other during this period, he is still quite interested in the fighting club. There are still some masters in it, but they are only masters among ordinary people. When encountering the lowest vampires, they can only fight on the streets, but this does not mean that they are masters among ordinary people. It doesn't hinder Garen's mood. The fighting club has many privileges. In school, because of winning awards, many elites can actually skip classes during the competition, even the main class. This is what Garen is most interested in. Then the newcomers were divided into 2 groups, and one senior took the newcomers who had never studied before to the other side to start teaching the basics. Another senior came over and took Garen and others to the other side, preparing to test some of their strength. After Serena chatted with a few key people, she walked over here. Next to her was a tall, muscular boy with a mustache and wearing a black vest and camouflage pants. Last year there was a Sidon, which was considered to be at the competition level. I don't know what level it is this year, the boy said in a low voice as he looked at the 7 freshmen in total. I have already told Beta and to be gentle when he confronts Garen. There are too many men in the club and there are too few girls. We urgently need high-quality resources like him to attract girls into the club. We can't scare him away, Elena replied softly. Are you talking as if I'm not a handsome guy? The burly boy complained. Cut. While the two were talking, the test started over there. Among them, the delicate black-haired girl with a ponytail and Garen with brilliant blonde hair attracted the most attention. The appearance of the two of them is too eye-catching, so they naturally get the most attention. As the test coach, Bideen first asked a boy with an unhappy expression to come out. The two confront each other, and then the test begins. He lunged forward, stepped sideways to let the opponent punch him, and hit his ribs. Good, next one. Although Bideen smiled on his face, he shook his head slightly in his heart. It looks quite decent, and can only be considered a beginner with some basics. The boy had no choice but to leave and replaced him with another girl. The waist and arms are full of muscles. The two sides exchanged names and then began to confront each other. With a lunge, the girl swooped over, her arm seeming to capture Bideen. Unfortunately, the grapple failed and she was dodged, but she managed to withstand Bideen's elbow attack. This is good, the foundation is very good. Serena, who was watching the battle from the side, nodded. Can be used as a daily reserve elite member. The burly boy also nodded. On the field, Bideen and the strong girl fought for several more rounds. In the end, the girl was beaten and fell to the ground. She was not discouraged, but she had a little excitement on her face. She left the stage, shouting that she finally found an organization. Go down. Next came another boy, and Bideen deliberately placed Garen and the pretty girl at the end. Especially Galen, whose delicate and fair skin made him a bit reluctant to touch it up. How much effort does it take to maintain it to achieve that flawless level? The rest of them are all weaklings, vulnerable, just basic enthusiasts with no experience in real fighting. Finally it's Garleon's turn. He stepped forward. Garen Thomas, please give me some advice. Don't worry and attack us. Bideen nodded. I may be stronger than the previous ones, so be careful. Garen smiled slightly and warned. Oh, Bideen looked at Garen's eyes carefully. He didn't see any joking in his eyes, and his face suddenly became serious. Seeing that the other party was paying attention, Garen also walked to the position facing the other party, and the two stood 3 meters apart. Careful. As soon as he finished speaking, Garen's body moved and changed a few positions, and he appeared behind the opponent in an instant. His arms were as light as the wings of a bird, gently brushing against Bideen's shoulders. Snapped. Bideen staggered and stumbled forward a few steps, his body balance completely falling apart. He looked back at Garen with a ghostly expression on his face. Not only him, but also the newcomers around him, as well as Serena and the burly boys who were watching the battle, all looked dull. The lollipop that Serena was about to put into her mouth was only halfway stretched out. The boy stretched out his hand to scratch his scalp, but his hand was hanging in the air and he didn't know where to put it. Several freshmen looked at each other, not knowing how to react. For a while, the corner here was quiet, and no one spoke at all. A long time. I'll wipe it. Master, Bideen squeezed out a few words from his mouth. It's just okay. Garen shrugged. What kind of footwork did you just do? Why did you dazzle me with just a few moves? The surprise on Bideen's face quickly returned, replaced by slight excitement. He is a senior fighting enthusiast, and he is obviously very interested in the kind of fighting skills that he has never seen before. That's just a simple use of steps, using the blind spot of the opponent's vision to move, and adding some special skills, you can achieve the effect of interfering with the opponent's vision in disguise. Garen did not say anything nonsense, this is indeed just an extremely common skill. In the world of secret martial arts, not to mention secret martial arts, even ordinary martial artists can use them and are very skilled at them. It is one of the popular techniques. This technique can only be used to bully ordinary people. Generally, Martial artists have the ability to perceive fighting through the five senses. If the vision is interfered with, you can just replace it with hearing, and it will have no effect. Garen also considered dealing with ordinary people, so naturally he only used the most common techniques in his memory. But in this world, this kind of technique seems to be a bit high-end. He has a very nice name, called dual phase robbery, Garen explained casually. According to the pace, his arms are like flying birds that can gently brush the opponent's neck artery. Dual phase robbery is a set of low-level martial arts, and it is not very practical. This is why Garen chose to use it in his first fight with ordinary people in this world. Unfortunately, that's it. Looking around, he saw that just now from the look in the eyes of the people in this scene, Garen also knew that this martial art seemed to be too much. Double phase robbery. Beta N's eyes were filled with enthusiasm. Not only him, but also other people he saw around him felt itchy in their hearts. Galen is just a few simple steps, and then a gentle flick. The posture is like a gliding bird with spread wings, graceful and elegant. No one thought that fighting could be displayed in an elegant and beautiful manner and be so practical. This seemed to open up a new world for them. I'll give it a try. The burly boy next to him who was itching finally couldn't bear it any longer. He walked off the field and said, Beta N, you go and have a rest first. I'll do it myself. Vice President, be careful, I don't even know how I got tricked. Beta N nodded and walked to the side, whispering a warning. The burly boy smiled, expanded his chest, raised his hands, moved his arms, and then began to shake slightly from left to right. I'm practicing boxing, be careful, he said loudly to Garen. The fate of the vice president here immediately attracted the attention of the old club members not far away, and the people there and the coach began to move over here. Even the newcomers on the other side stopped training and came over to watch the fun. Serena walked behind Garen and introduced. Be careful. That guy's name is Jamie. He is one of the leaders of the 5 elite groups in the club. Apart from the president, they are the 5 strongest. My sister is running for president, and she has to fight them one by one. Garen nodded to show that he heard. Garen Thomas, he announced his name. Jamie Bardo. The boy in the black vest showed a charming smile. Serena's voice sounded from behind Garen at the right time. Jamie is best at uppercuts and sneak attacks with knees. His knee strikes are called sabers and are very powerful. Don't just use your hands just because he's a boxer. Hey, don't give away all the details about your old friends when you meet a pretty boy. Jamie suddenly became angry. As for me, there's nothing I'm particularly good at. Garen nodded to show that he understood, and introduced himself in a reciprocal manner. Let's begin. Serena acted as a temporary referee for the two of them. The surrounding area suddenly became quiet. The vice president, elite team leader and a newcomer started testing. It was obvious that there was a great newcomer this time. A large number of people gathered around to watch the fun and novelty. The two faced each other in the middle of the circle. Since you are also a master, I won't spare any effort, Jamie said in a deep voice. Okay, Garen nodded. As soon as he finished speaking, Jamie rushed forward, his body turned into a black shadow, and he bowed and rushed towards the right side of Garen's body. The 3-meter distance passed in a flash. He swung his fist diagonally upwards and hit Garen's neck. The fist made a faint whistling sound in the air, like a high-speed rotating drill. He used half of his strength in this blow. Under normal circumstances, this punch should be able to easily break through 3 or 4 bricks. If it hits an ordinary person, it will easily break it into fractures. Even so, it is still powerful. As a result, Jamie's punch was also intended to be a test. If the opponent's skills were insufficient but his strength was insufficient, it would be bad to seriously injure the opponent. He habitually attacks his opponent from the side, taking advantage of his high explosive speed to attack his weak points. This is Jamie's fighting style. As for the sting, it is his ultimate trick. It is easy not to use it because it will damage his knees. It is also a relatively large burden. The fist violently rotated and hit Garen's neck. At this moment, there was a soft sound in his ear. Jamie felt that his eyes were dazzled, and Garen's figure disappeared from his eyes. He was slightly frightened and his legs twitched. Pointing to the ground, a spinning fist struck behind and to the side of him. Still no one. Jamie felt a little cold. He finally understood what Beta felt just now. He watched helplessly as his opponent suddenly disappeared, and could only hear the sound of his opponent moving and the sound of the wind. You will lose this way. He was anxious, and all his strength suddenly burst out, and his speed doubled in an instant. A combination of punches with both fists, left and right swings, a forward elbow strike and an upward thrust. Following the sound of the wind, he burst out with all his speed, just wanting to catch up with Garen's speed. Unfortunately, every time he could only see a little bit of the other person's clothes. You can't even catch your opponent's figure, let alone a head-on confrontation. As for some unique tricks such as poisonous stings, they only have a surprising effect during a head-on confrontation. They can't be used at all under such conditions. Snapped. A finger tapped lightly on the back of his neck. I give up. Give up. In desperation, Jamie raised his fists and admitted defeat. There was an uproar all around. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 593. No one expected that the vice president would lose to a new student. This year there is another newcomer who is even stronger than Sidon. It's simply weird. The vice president can't catch his shadow no matter how he turns. The way he moves is beautiful. It seems that Serena has roped in a new guy into the club. Now there's something good to see. A group of club members were all talking and making a fuss. Serena smiled proudly. The duel for the president election is about to be held tonight, and her side has gained a strong fighting force. It seems that her sister's position may be determined. How was it? She looked at Jamie at the end and asked in a low voice. The latter's face still didn't reply. Very strong, he said solemnly. I'm more confident now, Serena laughed. Probably stronger than your sister. The smile on Serena's face faltered. The club requires the person with the strongest force to be the president, don't forget this, Jamie reminded. No, Serena swallowed. Isn't that better? Suddenly a voice interrupted the conversation between the two. The crowd parted, and a tall, slender red-haired girl walked in. There was a narrow red line on the left side of her face, which seemed to be a stab scar. She was wearing a tight black leather jacket, long sleeves and trousers, and walked in with her long hair hanging loose. Sister, Serena turned around with a happy face and ran to the girl's side. The competition likes players with such graceful postures. When we go out to participate in competitions, their appearance can attract the most popularity. If he can really beat me, the president position will be the same until he is a sophomore. A girl in black leather clothes, the face doesn't matter. On the field, Garen walked down, with no sign of physical exhaustion on his face. He smiled amidst the praise and seemed to be just moving up to warm up. This made the new and old club members who gathered around feel even more incomprehensible. Looking around, Garen shook his head a little. Ordinary people in this world are too weak. The people around him, including the girl in tight black leather clothes who just arrived, all have pitifully weak auras. They are still in the stage of deciding based on the strength and speed of ordinary people. Whoever has stronger muscles, faster speed, and stronger resistance will have a greater winning rate. No matter how hard you practice this kind of fighting, if you don't have the martial arts to cultivate your body and mind to achieve the purpose of evolving yourself, then you will never be able to ignore the small pistol in your lifetime. This made Garen a little disappointed. His original purpose was to see if there was any noteworthy power among ordinary people, but the result was just that. The people around him, even the so-called fighting masters, let alone fighters, were far behind even martial artists. This gave him a feeling of boredom. As a top-notch martial artist, showing off his power among a group of ordinary people who are not even martial artists is like standing on the road and stepping on ants. Are you bored? Suddenly a voice said in Garen's ear. Garen was slightly startled. He followed the sound and looked over. It turned out to be the freshman girl who joined him. Her long black hair was tied into a ponytail, her skin was like white snow, and she had almond-shaped eyes and pink lips. She had a beautiful temperament. This is a very typical Oriental beautiful girl. Are you disappointed with the martial arts here? Are you bored? The girl said in a cold voice. The voice was not loud, but everyone around heard the words. Suddenly the noisy sounds around him fell silent. Don't talk nonsense. Master Garen is obviously not such a person, a voice defended. The girl just looked at Garen quietly and said nothing. Garen also suppressed his smile and looked back at her. Seeing that Garen did not defend himself, everyone around him suddenly stopped talking. Obviously Garen's lack of denial did mean that he meant this. This girl was right, the fighting club made him bored. Vice President Jamie's expression was a little downcast. He looked at Garen and then at the girl. His expression changed and he didn't know what he was thinking. Serena and his sister also looked at Garen quietly, and the atmosphere seemed a little solemn for a moment. The other club members on the ground also felt that something was wrong here, and most of them gathered over. Garen looked around. Now that he was exposed, he didn't bother to pretend anymore. It would be really boring for a group of ants to pretend. It's indeed a bit boring. You're right. There was a slight curve at the corner of his mouth. It was undoubtedly extremely rare for this girl to be able to keenly catch the slightest change in his eyes and accurately judge the meaning. And he didn't feel any abnormal fluctuations of extraordinary power in this girl. This was the most critical point. As soon as he said these words, there was a slight uproar around him, and several old members suddenly showed angry looks on their faces. Don't pull me, I'm going to go up and beat this guy to death. Sister Quinton is here. Go up and kill him. Let's wait until the president and others come. Some people were excited, some were calm. On the field, some people wanted to go up and challenge Garen in a duel, but were caught by their companions. Several club members cursed and took out their mobile phones and started making calls, obviously calling for someone. The newcomers are very strong now. The girl in black leather strode onto the stage and stood opposite Garen. With a face that was 80% similar to Serena's, and a completely different temperament, everyone recognized her identity immediately. Serena's sister, Quinton, one of the vice presidents. Do you want to make a move with me? Quinton stared at Garen with squinted eyes, and his two slender legs bounced slightly. The whole person also trembled slightly, as if a clockwork spring was slowly being tightened. Although I feel a little sorry for Sister Serena, the fighting level here is indeed a bit low. Garen calmly ignored the opponent's gaze. No wonder the vampires look down on ordinary humans so much. If ordinary people have the power of the secret martial world, no matter how powerful the vampires are, it is impossible to completely ignore ordinary people. If you don't pay attention, you may be capsized in the gutter. But unfortunately, the ordinary people here are far inferior to the warriors in the secret martial world. His heart moved slightly, and Garen suddenly had a good idea. Do you want to leave? It was the same voice just now. The newcomer Dongfang girl interrupted again, her eyes fixed on Garen. Is even the vice president vulnerable in your eyes? Her face. He also frowned a little, obviously dissatisfied with Garen's arrogance. Oh, Garen ignored the excited people around him and looked at the girl seriously. If the first time I can think that you have a keen intuition and it was a coincidence, then the second time can't be explained by a simple coincidence. The girl's eyes were slightly panicked, and she avoided Garen's gaze somewhat. I just can't stand your attitude. On the surface, you're very friendly, but in fact, you're extremely proud. She has indeed had extremely keen intuition since she was a child, and can easily interpret the meaning of other people's eyes. No matter how hard they hide it, it is useless. This is an extremely sensitive physical talent. Especially after I studied psychology by myself, I became able to interpret other people's psychology. Garen is also interested in this point. If this talent is used in fighting, and you can guess the opponent's thoughts en route to the palace when facing an opponent, then it will be an extremely good fighting technique. It seems that not all human beings in this world are a pile of waste. With this thought in mind, Garen took a deep look at the girl with interest. Suddenly he had a good idea. Unlike Nighthawk, the people there are almost stereotyped, but the students here are different. Many of them have good potential, especially the girl in front of me. Her potential is even better, and her physical foundation looks good. If you grant them secret skills and then choose a secret martial arts to teach them, as long as they have enough perseverance, they can become masters at a certain level. Not to mention fighters, at least martial artists are fine. Garen's own force value is steadily improving day by day, and he has potential help from time to time. If he might have been threatened by an ordinary vampire a few years ago, now, he can kill two with one hand. Number of vampires. That kind of rough straightforward attack method, coupled with only biting, pure punching, and kicking. For Garen, it was simply unsightly. During the period from the first year of high school to college, there was not much improvement in potential points, but Garen made rapid progress in breaking through the third level of the killing hand. This magic skill has the terrifying effect of taking away the vitality of living creatures. Compared with the two levels below, the third level, the power of layers does not lie in the improvement of other aspects, but in the accumulation of effect power. As the top magic skill of Demon King Hesaz, the most terrifying thing about Killing Hand is that it can absorb the vitality of living things, accumulate it in his hands, and wait for it to burst out when needed. The third level of accumulated vitality can increase the lethality by nearly 3 times. Coupled with Garen's current basic strength, his power is already close to his peak strength in the totem world. It's just that the scope of influence is not very large. In other words, he may be able to regain all his strength in a short time. Reach the level 6 of the totem world. Just by practicing magic skills to the third level, you can approach the 6th type of godlike strength in the totem world. This made Garen a little confused, but when he looked into it carefully, he found that there seemed to be soul seeds in it. The soul seeds seem to have a certain amplification and blessing effect, which greatly increases the power of his shots when he practices secret martial arts. After coming back to his senses, Garen felt that what he wanted to do in this world was to be alone, which would probably not be very convenient and would require some good helpers. Maybe you can find some good seedlings among ordinary people to help you with your affairs. It's just that improving strength is one thing, but so is loyalty. These are the key things to consider. Don't teach secret skills or secret martial arts to someone else who will use them against you in the future. That would be unpleasant. What's your name? Garen came back to his senses and looked at the girl. Whoosh. Suddenly, a black shadow whipped towards his right face like a whip. It was Quinton. Her face was cold, she raised her right leg high and swept it sideways. At the same time, the other leg thrust forward viciously, directly hitting Garen's lower body. The power is so great that you can tell just by listening to the wind. If it kicks another person, it will definitely be the ending that the man least wants to encounter. Snapped. Garen held her leg with one hand, hugged her with the other hand, and swung it to the left. Call. A black shadow flew past, and Quinton was thrown directly out of the venue gate. A series of screams suddenly came from outside the door, followed by the hissing sound of a human body sliding on the ground.